go ahead. Good evening, everyone. As usual, let me know if the sound's good. Just got home from work, so I didn't have time to check all the sound and everything, make sure everything's working well. Just getting set up here. Let's go with okay, that's a good color. Let's make this larger. All right, so tonight, part 2 of the Crucible. For anyone who doesn't know what the Crucible is, we are going to be going through, we're using the site called exorcism.io, and we're going to be learning how to code, and we're going to be doing our best to get through every single problem here in exorcism.io. Hopefully, this will take us a while to do. The problems definitely go from easy. There's lots of easy ones, lots of medium ones, lots of hard ones. So we'll definitely be able to progress through, and hopefully everyone will be able to follow along, through this process, through this journey, of completing all of these items that we have here in Exorcism. And along the way, we're going to be talking about a lot of concepts. We're going to be, learning about the different pieces needed to solve them. We'll be learning about test-driven development. We'll be learning about all that kind of stuff. So it's not just going to be me sitting here coding. I encourage everyone to go sign up for a GitHub account, sign up for exorcism.io. And again, I'll post this in the chat as I did last time for anyone that wants to follow along. How do I get the chat back? Nope. Cancel. Let's go ahead and send that in the chat. You can go ahead and grab that and get all set up with that. It has a command line that you need to get set up on here. But yeah, let's get going. So tonight we're gonna try to get through maybe two or three of these, and hopefully we'll be able to use a lot of different tools and topics to do that. But first, what we didn't do last time, I want to create a GitHub account, GitHub repo for this, so that everyone can kind of grab from it and push to it. All of us are going to be working in different languages. I'm going to primarily be working in Go, probably JavaScript as well. Maybe I'll do something in Python, but mostly I'm going to be doing everything in Go. So, but I want everyone to be able to, one, get comfortable with using Git. I want people to get comfortable with, contributing to a Git repository. And we can all just kind of let this grow and build over time. People can refer to it, when they need to reference answers and figure out how people did things. Or if you just like to show off the different ways you did stuff, you can go to this repo. You can also do a lot of those things inside of Exorcism as well. You can kind of see things that people have uploaded once you submit an answer to a solution. But we'll go ahead and create our own. So we'll call that something cool. Let's call that, we'll call this, we'll call it the Crucible. I just call it Crucible. And we're going to say, these are our answers to exorcism.io problems. Cool. And we'll leave it public so that all of us can access it. And then we'll create it. So anyone who doesn't know what GitHub is, I actually did a live stream on this. I'll probably be doing a YouTube video of it so that it sticks around. But it is a version control repository or source control repository for your code. So this is somewhere where, we can upload our code to kind of keep track of it. We can view changes. Multiple people can work on the same code base at the same time. We can all contribute to that code base and allow it to grow. And there's some tracking information in there, so we know what's going on with it. We know who did what, and we can, we have a good place for our code. You get a new computer, you can download it to as many computers as you want, but you do have access to this code, anywhere you go, really. So let's create that repository. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go into where last time we created our code. So there's an exorcism folder when you download. Actually, let me see if I can make this larger. Actually, let's get out of there. Let's go into here. Open up a different type of terminal. Let's make the text larger, as we always have to do. I need to set this to a macro or something so this can just happen on the fly. So we'll go ahead and we'll save that. That should make the text large enough for us to see for the time being. Go to bash. CD. Sorry about that. I'm still getting over a little bit of a sickness. But we'll change it to mount document. Cool. So what we can do, so if we actually switch tracks, so right here it says go, because that's the language I started with, and I'll actually show you. Let's see if I can switch language tracks. Let me switch to a different one and pull down some information from a different language track. Let's go with the JavaScript one. If I join the JavaScript track, and I'm gonna go to independent mode, so I have access to all of it, all the stuff. Yeah, Exorcism.io is a great site, especially if you're trying to learn about, you know, learning how to approach algorithms and things to kind of pass coding interviews or coding challenges. This is a great place to go. It's also like very like information, like you learn a lot with just the types of things they give you, like RNA transcription. Like you actually learn a lot in the problems, you know, other than coding, which is pretty interesting. But it just really helps you to be able to practice using a coding language to solve a problem. Yeah, like that's the goal of this. I mean, I'm getting better at them. Definitely something I'm working on. But this will absolutely, like running through these will absolutely help you get better. So anyone who didn't see the first stream, all of the tracks, there's lots of languages here, so you can do whatever you're comfortable with. You know, and they'll have, you know, lots of exercises. And again, I'm probably going to primarily stick with Golang and JavaScript. It's like, use whichever one you want to use, because we're going to be more so covering how to solve these problems rather than actual implementation. Even though we are going to, you know, be coding them out as well. So I'm going to also grab, I'll grab Leap. I'll grab Leap from the JavaScript one so that you can see how Exorcism handles this. So you just run whenever you choose a problem you want, it kind of gives you all the information for the problem here. I'm gonna make this a little bit larger and I'll expand the window. I know my face is covering up this piece, but it kind of gives you the introduction. This is everything that's going to be in the README that gets downloaded with the problem. But it gives you the download link here. It tells you kind of what to do after that. But we've gone ahead. You can kind of read this if you want to beforehand, if you're not sure which one you want to work on. But this is how you get that information. So what we're going to do, we downloaded it, and now I should have another. I should have. Oh yeah, Exorcism. Oh, whoops. Let me do this back in Windows. Control tab, CD document, CD Exorcism. So my Windows side of things, I'm kind of running Linux inside of Windows. I actually forgot that was something I needed to fix last time. But where is this download to? When I downloaded this, it actually went to somewhere else. I went to this folder here. And now you can see how here I have a JavaScript folder now. I had just these folders before. Added a JavaScript folder. Let me go ahead and do that on the Windows side of things, just so I have everything that I'm looking for. Let's copy this again. Let's download it here. And so again, this is my Windows side of things, and you can see now I have a JavaScript directory, and if I go into that JavaScript directory, it has the thing that I just downloaded. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one first. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code right here. Cool. So we got VS Code opened up. Leap. Let's read all the extra files are going to come again with well, as you get farther along in the beginning, they come with your actual file that you're going to need to write the code in. They come with a README, which tells you what to do, and they'll probably come with some tests. And then as you get farther along, this one looks like it actually came with a test, and you got to create the file yourself. But again, this goes back to that test-driven development and learning how to code to test. I don't really know JavaScript tests that well, so this one's going to be interesting, us hopping straight into this. But now you guys can see how, the process I used to learn, because again, I'm using a language that I'm not super duper comfortable with, but we'll figure it out together. So again, going into the README, cool thing that if you're using Visual Studio Code, which I highly recommend you use Visual Studio Code, it has this very cool Markdown previewer here. So this README, all of the repos, all the things you download, all the exercises and problems are going to have this readme.md. What this readme.md is, this is a common thing to put in any of your coding repos, any project that you're working on. This is the file that tells people what this is, what this thing is that we're using, how to run it, all the information that you would want to share with someone. That all goes in this readme file. The .md means it's a markdown file, and markdown is just a way of formatting text so that it can be displayed. The display of it can be controlled through the way that you type it. So you can see here, like leap has a pound sign next to it, or hashtag. There's backticks next to this text section, and 2 pounds next to this the note section. These all denote different styling functions for this. So there's a previewer here. Top right, open preview to slide. And so what this does is this actually renders the markdown, so you can see this one thing here actually made this a large heading, and if I add real time, if I add another one, save it, it actually changed the formatting of that heading. So that's what this markdown file is, but it's nice, it's a little bit easier to read when you actually preview it as a real markdown file. So we'll close this. Cool, so now we got our markdown file here. This is the same thing that we get on the page over here. It's got the same information, but it's in that markdown file. And so let's read it. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Did that make it any larger? Cool, there we go. So I'll close this side for now. So this exercise called leap. So given a year, report if it is a leap year. The tricky thing here is that a leap year in the Gregorian calendar occurs on every year that is evenly divisible by 4, except every year that is evenly divisible by 100, unless the year is also evenly divisible by 400. Now, this is how you have to approach problems like this. It gives us a bunch of information, and it gives us some logic here, and we want to use the tools that we have available to us and figure out how we can use those tools to solve a problem like this. So, again, first, always figure out what the goal is. They tell us in the first line, read it carefully, given a year, so they're going to give us a year, and we want to basically run some code to determine if this year is a leap year. And then they tell us how to figure out if a year is a leap year. So every year that is evenly divisible by 4 is a leap year. But if the year is divisible by 4, but is also evenly divisible by 100, then it is not a leap year. But if it's divisible by 4, if it's divisible by 4 and also divisible by 100, and also divisible by 400, then what is that? I guess it's not a leap, unless the year is also. So this is a leap year. This is not a leap year. This makes it a leap year again. Cool. So we have all the information we need to, I guess, to develop the logic in which we can use to determine if a year is a leap year. So it gives us some examples here. For example, 1997 is not a leap year, but 1996 is. 1900 is not a leap year, but year 2000 is. So let you know right up front on kind of some examples you can use to test against. And let's say if your language provides a method in the standard library that does this lookup, pretend it doesn't exist and implement it yourself. So Various languages like JavaScript provide a tons of stuff in libraries to be able to do some fancy cool things without having to do it manually. Basically the goal with these is to not do that. It's to do it yourself. So like that's another reason why I'm using Go. The Go standard library doesn't provide a lot of magic, and so we can probably do this in Go as well. We'll try to do both at the same time so that we can kind of see the way code kind of looks, from different languages to different languages. Then it gives us some notes, and it gives us some setup. And this is just to get JavaScript installed. So I'm using JavaScript, which is going to be using npm, which is Node Package Manager, to install dependencies and things for these projects. And then we're going to be able to use this npm test command to run tests. So again, we talk about test-driven development. Test-driven development is when you write tests, when you get requirements, the things you need to solve, and you write your tests first. You know the things that are true. So we have our logic here, and then we know things like 1997 is not a leap year, but 1996 is, and 1900 is not a leap year, but 2000 is. We can use that information to write a test for it. So that's what this is here. So if this is your first time seeing a test, we can kind of go through some of this real quick. Different testing libraries and frameworks in different languages are going to look differently. The one in Go is going to look a lot different than this. But let's go through what this is. So this is basically saying, hey, import this function is leap from /leap. What does that mean? That tells us off bat, that tells us that we need to, like over here is with my file explorer, I can see that there's no /leap file in here, leap.js file. And this is something that I just know from picking up the little bit of JavaScript experience that I do have, this is how you import functions from other files. And it's going to be trying to do that. And once it does that, it's going to try to run these tests. So this describe function, I'm not sure how to explain describe. Let's do a quick Google of describe in JavaScript. And again, like I said, I'm learning just as much as you are when it comes to at least JavaScript. Let's see if we can get a little information out about this really quick. So apparently this started with RSpec, spec style. Should declare test by calls to it, nested inside describes. All right, it doesn't give us a ton of information there. So we're referencing a file or function that contains. Oh, great question. Court the Jester asked if this reference is referencing a file or a function that contains is leap. You are referencing a file that's called leap.js. JavaScript kind of just knows, or Node at least knows to when you put this here that it's going to be looking for a file with a .javascript extension. So it's looking inside of whatever file we place here for a function, an exported function that's called isLeap. So that's what we're referencing there. So that lets us know that we need to create a file called for this to work, called leap.js. And let's do that first. Let's create a file called leap.js. And in that file, we need to create a function called isLeap. And we're going to export this later. But yep. So that's what it's referencing there. And then it's got our test cases. These are the cases that we want to test to, that we want to ensure that we write code to resolve. So the first one here is a test that says, it wants to test for if it's a leap year. For all these, this describes a list of tests that figures out if something is a leap year. And the first one is going to test if a year is not divisible by 4. It's not divisible by 4, then it's a common year. Then it's a year that's not a leap year. And basically what it does here is a function here, and it expects it expects that when I run the function isLeap, so remember we're importing this function isLeap, it's going to run that imported function right here. It's going to pass in, remember it said in the README that it's going to give us a year. So given a year, these words are important here. It's going to take in a year. It's going to run our code, and it expects it to be false. So that's what this little test right here. That's all it's going to do is take a year. That's for this test case. It's a year that's not divisible by 4. It's going to expect that to be false because a year that is not divisible by 4 cannot be a leap year. So so it's going to run that test against our code and expect that to be right, and it's that'll pass or fail. Then we got another one here. If a year is divisible by 4 and not divisible by 100, is that a leap year? Same thing. All these are going to be passed in. We know by this that it's supposed to be a leap year, so it's going to say, hey, is 2016 a leap year? And it's going to expect that to be true. It's going to do the same thing here. If a year divisible by 100 but not divisible by 400, it's a normal year, not a leap year. It's going to pass in a number that we know to be a common year, and it's going to expect it to be false. And this one, if it's divisible by 400, a leap year, so it's going to pass in 2000, the year 2000, expect it to be true, and pass in 1800 and expect it to be false. So these are a bunch of test cases. This may not be an exhaustive list of test cases, but you can use test cases like this to drive, the code that you write. And it's common practice in a lot of places to write these tests before you actually start doing any development on the actual code to make sure you are solving the right problems. So let's take that. Let's actually see. First, let's do the first thing. Let's run npm install. Actually, I don't want to run this. I'm not gonna run this out of here. I'm gonna run this out of here. I thought I made this larger. I can make it even larger than this. But so this npm install, what this is going to do is going to run. This is going to install this directory. Am I in the right directory? That should be right. What happened here? Volume C has no label. No such file or directory. Exsysm package.json. There's one, right? Oh, thank you. I'm in the wrong directory. So now let's run it. So what npm install does basically is there's this pack for JavaScript and Node. There's this package here. I mean, there's this file here called package.json. What this does is this specifies a bunch of packages and a bunch of libraries for your project. So you can put all this stuff in here, and then when someone wants to run your code or run your package, you can just run npm install and it'll go through and resolve all of these things. So it went through and it just did all that for me here. No errors here, a couple of warnings, but no errors. And so what we can do is to run this, we can just do npm test runs our tests. So let me see. Actually, I'm not feeling this music right now. Let me change it real quick. All right, it's a little bit better. Cool. So I ran. Let me make this bigger again. This is make this a little larger. 28. Is that too big? Cool. All right. So what it tells us here is that that our test failed. One, it failed immediately on the importing of isLeap from Leap. So cannot find module /leap from leap.spec. Cool. And so there's a big reason for that. We created this file. I went through, I created it here, but you may not be able to tell from the lineup here. This is actually in the wrong folder. So I actually need to move this up into into leap.js. I mean, into the leap folder. I kind of just had it nested wrong. That was my bad. So there we go with that. So now it's in the right place. We can go ahead and rerun this test. So now it should give us a different error, I believe, but we'll see. It should still fail. Cool. So now we don't get the same error. It's not. It lets you know exactly what happened. It lets us know we got a failed test here. And what we have here is year not divisible by 4. So basically, it tells us which test it failed on. So this was the very first test that it does for checking, you know, if this is divisible by 4. And it should let us know. I thought it'd let you know what it got. Maybe not. Again, I don't know that much about JavaScript testing. I think in Go it'll tell you what it actually got as output. Oh, type error 0. So I guess it got nothing. It got 0. I guess that's it. Oh, the error itself though is that leap is not a function, which is true. And that's mostly because we have not returned it or exported it. So this is still kind of just contained in this file, I believe. So let's go ahead and start coding to these tests. So we know, what's the first thing we know? The first thing we know is, maybe we can put this over to the left. First thing we know is that if the year is divisible by, if the year is divisible by 4, then it's a leap year. So let's start with that. So we talked about last time, and you know, in our original JavaScripting video, we talked about conditionals. So we're going to use something called an if statement, and we're going to use that to do some comparison. So we're going to say if year. Okay, so first thing, we created this function. The function has to take something. What are we going to be given? We're going to be given a year. So let's pass that in. This right here is going to be a variable for whatever you want it to be. So let's type in a year right here. This just means that we can pass in a parameter. Again, that parameter being a year. This right here, you can see, is the same exact thing as, let's move this over, close this down. Same thing. So you can see is leap 2015, same paradigm as is leap with a year in the middle. So we got that going for us. So we're basically going to say here, if, you know, if your year is divisible by 4. So what does that mean? How can we check if a year is divisible by 4? We can use a tool available to us in most, if not all, programming languages called modulo. So what modulo is modulo allows you to divide and return the remainder. So respect to using modulus, two numbers, modulo, give a number. Yep. So basically modulo is a good thing to learn about. Modulo or modulus. It does division. So, you know, we could divide. And actually I can show you, let's do this real quick. We'll show you a real example. And if we just do 5, 10, let's print something out. Console.log 5 divided by 10 divided by 5. And let's call this function is leap. And let's say we run this file. So if we do node is leap.js, what happened? Oh, it's leap, so node, leap.js. Cool. So in here, all I did was I did 10 divided by 5, which should give us 2, as you know. And you can see here that it gave us 2. Hopefully that's not covered by my face, but it gave us 2 here, which is exactly what we're supposed to get. And that's what division does. But what happens if we switch this to modulo or modulus? Save that. We will go back into this and we'll run it again, and we get 0 again because it returns the remainder. We know that 10 divided by 5 goes into it twice. But we know if you do divide that into it twice, there is no remainder. So that's what you use modulo for. So here, what we can do is we can say if year modulo or modulus 4 is equal to 0. So this basically says, hey, if the year can be, divided by 4 evenly, with no remainder, and so that's even division right there. So if that happens, we are going to just console.log. That is that's a leap year! Exclamation point. So we'll just save that. And what we can do now is we can do a little bit of testing. So let's actually use the one they have here. So is leap being 2015? We'll say is leap. We'll actually use 2015. This is expected to be false because 2015 is not evenly divisible by 4. So let's check and make sure this works. Pull this back up. Run the code again. What happened here? Cool. Actually, let's add another console.log and actually have to return. Actually, I don't think I need to return. But I can. So basically, what happened here is that this is false. But I didn't tell it what to do when it's false. I only told it what to do if this condition was true. So it didn't give us anything as it should have. And then I can do. I'll just return this. We'll console.log it. Return leap year. Else return not leap year. Save that. Let's run this again. This feels like it should work. That did not work. Why did it not work? Can you not just... Oh. No. I have to console.log this. I have to actually print out the value of this. And what do we got here? Boom. So we know it's not supposed to be a leap year. So we know our logic is right. And we can test again by using something that's supposed to be a leap year. In the README, it told us that year 2000 is a leap year. We can pass in the year 2000 instead of 2015. Run our code again. And leap year. All right, so we can be sure now that our logic is correct, or mostly correct, for at least this test case, and the first thing that we need to do. So we got that in place now. So what we're gonna do is I'll leave that up for now. We need to check against the next test. So commonly divisible by 4, that's in there. But if a year is divisible by 4, but not divisible by 100, then it is a leap year. Then it is a leap year. So let's see here. This is probably a better case for a switch statement, but we'll keep along with the ifs and the if else's because they're simple to follow for now, and then we'll convert it later at the end. So what we do have here, we told it one conditional, and so I've seen weird things where, you can do another if statement all the way down for each of these, but you don't want to do that. You can do them in one block. You can do an else, and I think that's how you do it. And I think this is how you do it in JavaScript. I don't know the syntax for it, but this looks right. It looks like it's going to work. And then so we're going to say else. Actually, let's do. What is it? Is it elif or is it else if? Let's actually just Google it. JavaScript if else. So if you ever get in a bind, this is all you got to do. You just Google it. I don't know if else is in JavaScript. So let's read it. So if you don't know about W3 schools, let me actually paste this in. This has a lot of documentation. There's other places for documentation for JavaScript as well, but this is a good site for getting information you need. And we're gonna say these are the options we have available to us for conditionals. We use the if already. Else means, you know, you're saying if something, you know, if this first conditional is true, you know, do something else, you know, any other case, do something else. And that will be this. But we're going to have more than just that. So we are going to add it. We're going to actually use a different operator or a different conditional statement. That's going to be the else if. So we're going to say, so I guess it's else if with a space, which is weird to me, but sure. So we're basically going to say else if year modulo 4 equals, let's actually, how do I, let's do that, equals 0. And so we have two things here. We have two things we want to check for here. We want to check if it's divisible by 4, but it's also not divisible by 100. We'll do something like this. You can string conditionals together with, if you want to include both, you could do and. So 2 ampersands means everything on the left has to be satisfied and everything on the right has to be satisfied for this to equal true. Or you can do this for or and say, hey, if this is true or if this side is true, you know, do whatever's under here. We want the and, so, you know, divisible by 4 and year is, was it not divisible by 100? It's not divisible by 100. So the not operator is, well, first let's go modulo 100. And the not is, so equals is just an equal. Actually, I think you need this too, but it's equals. Not, if you throw an exclamation point out in front, that means the opposite. So we're gonna say if that's not equal to 0, then do whatever we want here. And we are going to return here. What is this supposed to be? That it's a leap year. So it's 100. Oh, actually. Oh yeah, okay. So if it is divisible by 4, actually, we didn't actually code this first one to the spec. You know, if you're just going off of this, we're saying if a year is not divisible by 4. So this one would actually be this, and you know, it's equal to it does the same thing, but we're saying if it's not divisible by 0, it's not a leap year. So that's what we should have been. That's what we should have done before. No biggie. It's literally the exact same thing, but I would like to code to what we have here. So would you say exorcism is more geared towards learning than practice for whiteboards? Never heard of it before. No, I actually think it's much more geared towards practicing for whiteboarding. The types of algorithms and things that are on here. This is, you know, by far one of the simpler ones. This is very similar to FizzBuzz, if you've ever heard of that algorithm, which is a common one. It's turned up a lot. But they get a lot tougher. But definitely, I think this will not. It is helpful to help you learn and to get some practice, but it's not going to help you learn the language. It doesn't teach you languages. It gives you, you know, it gets you prepared for, you know, being given information like this, the same way you would do in an interview prep or in a coding challenge or whiteboarding, being able to solve that, you know, according to various specs. But it's not really going to help you learn the language, but will help enforce that, you know, the skills within that language. You know, as you're looking for answers. But so I want to code this, you know, very similar to what they have here in the test. But so year not divisible by 4, common year. So year not divisible by 4, you know, not a leap year. Or make it easier, I can just say common because that's what they have here, common year. Else, if year is divisible, so the second one, divisible by 4, but not divisible by 100. I have that here. Those are 4, but not divisible by 100. We're going to say that that is supposed to be a leap year because this is supposed to be true. So let's pass in 2016. Save that. And we'll go ahead and run our code again. Boom. So 2016 is a leap year because it satisfies everything we have here. Let me think of what's a year. Maybe it'll tell us in our preview that it's divisible by 4, but not divisible by 100. 1900 is not. So 1900 is divisible by 4. That's what's, but not divisible by 100. And yep, that's not a leap year, just how it says 1900 is not a leap year, but 2000 is. Let's run it again. Oh, wait. Do we have a problem here? With 2000. We're getting 2000 is not a leap year. And why are we getting that? So let's figure that out, actually. So is 2000 divisible by, evenly divisible or not divisible by 4? I think it is, so we're not getting common year. And we can just, I'm pretty sure it is, but just, to confirm with everyone what's going on, so 2000 divided by 4. Even so it goes in 500 times, no remainder, evenly divisible. 4 times 500 obviously is 2000. But is it divisible by 100? And we're gonna say same thing. Obviously it is. Cool. So remember, here we said is not divisible by 100. That should be a leap year. Did we do that wrong? Divisible by 4, but not divisible by 100. That should be a leap year. Cool. So that makes sense. That should not be a leap year, but this says. Cool. All right. Now I know what's going on here. Cool. It says the year 2000 is, and that's because of this last line caveat. This is why you should read everything. And this is what, I actually ran through this line by line just to show you why, although it's important to follow these tests, it's also important to get a good understanding of everything you have in these tests. You might spend all of your time trying to figure out why this is improper and why it's giving you output that you wouldn't expect. But for what we've written so far, that is absolutely what we would expect, is that this is not a leap year because basically it goes through this. It's not a common year. It tries to evaluate this. Says to say it's a leap year, but it is divisible by 100 and also divisible by 4. So this is true, but this is false, and they both need to be true. So it drops through from this, and it returns not a leap year, and that is because of the last piece, which this is divisible by 400, which makes it a leap year, but we're not down there yet. So, we can code to that. We can be fairly confident that we've coded to the second spec, and we can move on to the third one. We can say, hey, if a year is divisible by 100, but not divisible by 400, then it is a common year. So we got another block here. We can say else if, and we can we'll just copy all of our stuff here. Just because we're lazy. And so what is it asking for? If it is divisible by 100, we'll start with that. So if year divided by 100 equals 0, and it's not divisible by 400. So all you can see here, all we got to do, change this to 4 and leave that in there. So that says, hey, as long as if this year, modulo 100 equals 0 and year modulo 400 is not equal to 0, then it's a common year. So let's change this to common year. And so the test case that they use for this is 2100. So let's go ahead and change that in here. And go ahead and run our code. Boom, common year. That's what we're expected to get. 2100 is not supposed to be a leap year. 100 is supposed to be false. So cool. So we've coded again to that test as well. So we've solved that test. Now let's go to if a year. That's the next one. We're testing here. If a year is divisible by 400, then it is a leap year. So let's add another one, and we'll say else if year modulo 400 equals 0, then I spelled this wrong.
Mic on, mic off.
Wait, can you just hear me? Can you guys still hear me? I definitely turned my my microphone on my headset on and off just now on accident. All right, we should still be good. All right, cool. So yeah, if that modulo is 0, then it is a leap year. So we're gonna say return leap year, and let's test that with the input that they gave us, which is 2000. Remember, we tested this before, and we were not getting the expected output. And boom, now we're getting that it is a leap year because it's a leap year. And then year divisible by 200 but not divisible by 400 is a common year. Now, this is another test that's not evident in the README. It doesn't say that in here, but that's why it's important to look at the test. And so we can use that to make sure everything works too. So the year is divisible by 200. But year is not divisible by 400. So not is supposed to be. Yeah, you got a question? Definitely go ahead and ask it. I'm here for all the questions. This is for, you know, as much learning as possible. So any questions you guys have, ask away. I'll do my best to answer them. You know, if I know it. If not, we can look it up. We can figure it out together for sure. Also, if you see better ways to do these things, drive that forward. I already know better ways to write this, but I kind of want to go through it as is for now, just so people can kind of follow along, and we can optimize it later and make it a lot better after this. But so, brand new dev, you got a job, all that, but was a bootcamp grad. Can you shed some light on the background and also when the light bulb clicked? That's a great question right there. A little bit of light on my background. I'm a DevOps engineer. So DevOps engineering is just, you know, with the I guess invention of the cloud, and the way that you can now manage web infrastructure. You can now use code to do things that you generally did manually. And so that's my job. My job is taking the experience I have with web infrastructure, so servers, automation, things like that, code pipelines, things like that, and using code to be able to optimize and automate those things, really to help developers develop faster. That's my background. I went to school for information systems. I did not go to school for computer science, and so my background lends itself to that. I did a lot of stuff with systems, and I'll actually say, starting out in dev, you know, I actually was a computer science major at first. I got weeded out my freshman year. I took a Python course, or was it Java? I think it was a Java course my freshman year. Comp Sci 1, which 201, I think, which they told us when we started was a weed out course. had a lot of trouble with it. I actually understood what we were doing, but I kind of brute forced everything. And, you know, I used to complete projects and still get terrible grades on it. Decided this wasn't for me, especially because I was a full-time athlete at the time as well. So it was really tough. Hindsight, you know, I kind of wish I didn't. You know, information systems was cool, but it would be great to have a comp sci background and to kind of understand, you know, programming on a deeper level than I do now. But it took me a while to really start getting code to click. It probably took me trying to learn how to code on my own 3 times actually. I tried once with Python and I made it through all the basics. I made it through, you know, just I knew how to create variables, and I understood conditionals, you know, if else's and stuff like that. I understood the syntax of the languages, but I never really learned how to like use them, understand how to solve problems with them, which was really weird. Not really weird, but it was really tough for me at the time. And I think it wasn't until I started actually being able to use code on the job that I learned how to like things started to click, and I understood like how to put things together, you know, to use code to solve problems. So that's kind of what my goal is going to be with this channel, is to really like pass that along to people. So a lot of this right now is going to be, you know, learning, you know, the basics of coding. But I'm gonna try to actually add in a third stream a week to kind of help, you know, really dive in and like do some real world stuff with coding. It did take a while, 100%. For me at least, everyone's different. Practice was a big thing for me. So like doing problems like this and just like using it every day. Like the worst thing to do is to start learning this stuff and then take, you know, 2-3 weeks off. You know, it's really hard to learn that way. But yeah, it took a while for it to click. Like I said, I think I tried to learn how to code three times before I was able to use it effectively, you know, at a job or anything like that. And, you know, and still, like every day, I'm still like I've done a lot of back end things, and you know, traditionally, I'm a what most people consider a back end developer, but I'm like. In my current position, I'm doing actually a lot of web dev stuff. This is my first time doing web dev stuff, and I just started doing all of the web dev stuff, you know, as a part of supporting my team. So it's a new world for me. A lot of that's just starting to click. Like React is really messing with my head, and that's why I'm kind of doing this in JavaScript now, just to get more comfortable. But it does take a while. It's not impossible. As it starts to click, like it'll start to snowball, and as you start to as 1 or 2 pieces really starts to click, like I said, it'll really snowball into you learning more and more and more. And it'll be a lot easier to learn more. Like right now, I can really pick up any language because now I understand how you can use code to solve problems. Like it's easy to learn the syntax of a language, but like you really start to understand it when you actually start using it. So, you know, if that's what you're worried about, you know, again, keep practicing, keep finding a place to get your, you know, to get hands-on with code. You said you already have a job, which helps. Hopefully, if that job is not giving you, you know, the practice and the support that you need, I go find something else. Find something that you know where you can become great. Because again, 1, there's a lot of money in the field, and 2, like it's powerful once you know what's going on with this stuff. It's great. But appreciate the follow for sure. A great question as well. So let's finish up coding the final piece here. We already put that there, and that is supposed to be false. So we're going to return that this is a common year. But oh yeah, actually, in the middle of all that, I want to bring up I'll send you guys my LinkedIn. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me there. You can kind of check out my background as well to kind of get an idea of the path that I took. But yeah, everyone's path is different. Like I said, I'm not a traditional dev, for sure. But practice will help. But yeah, so we coded up the last piece to this last test, and let's go ahead and pass in 1800 here. Let's go ahead and run it again. And good, just like we expected it to be false. It's a common year. Now we can definitely optimize this code, but I'm gonna leave it as is, and let's run our whole test suite. So remember, if you ever forget what to run, I just know this stuff because I touch this stuff all the time. So I know that you can run it with npm test. So it can run the test suite. So I'm gonna do that now. So let's go ahead and npm test. Whoops, am I in the wrong? what's happening here. NPM, right there, bro. Cool. Let's run it through. Running our test, and something failed. Cool. So what does this say? Leap year. Oh, fine. So this all works. We did not actually write this in a way that could be used by our by the actual test. So we have to export this. And I think you just do, and this is something I don't know. I think I can just do module dot export is leap. Wait. Maybe. I don't know. That's actually a good question. I actually don't know how to export function. Let's figure that out. Export statement. So just follow, and so now you can see here how I can refer to documentation pretty quickly because I'm used to looking at documentation. It's very important to, it's very easy to search for answers on Google. You'll be able to find them for sure. But it's important to learn how to be able to use and to read documentation so that you can quickly find the answers that you need. I Googled it. I knew where to go, but I also knew how to interpret what I was finding. And this may not work, but this gives me something that I can use, and we can see if this works. But definitely, if you can, whenever you're looking for the answers to something, try to find some documentation and practice reading that, because it definitely takes time to read through documentation. Learn how to use that effectively for yourself. So, cool. It looks like it failed on the same one to be false, comparing two different expected Boolean, but received a string. It's also important to read what's going on. Again, we need to fix our code to actually go to the test. We wrote it in a way that we could test it locally and to run the application ourselves to get the answers. But here it's expecting to be it's getting back common year instead of false. So it's looking for a Boolean. So all we need to do here, because it's looking for a Boolean being a true false value, that's all a Boolean is. It's true or false. Everywhere it says common year, and I could use find and replace for this. We're going to return false, and we'll just go ahead and do that. We'll do false. So everything that is common years are not leap years, and for everything else, we're going to do true. Leap year, true, and we don't need this down here. Cool, save that. So now we are returning the value that this test actually wants. And again, if we're coding to this is the value that it said: false, true, false, true, false. Cool. So now we have the values that it's expecting, and let's see if this runs. Yep, yeah, the Googling thing, it is certain. I probably shouldn't say this live on stream, but I feel like, I do get paid for what I know, but I also get paid to be able to Google and interpret very quickly the things that I do find. It is absolutely a skill that takes practice, and it actually takes years of experience to get there. You'll know what you're looking for. I almost always know what I'm looking for. I just gotta find the exact thing. But yeah, people are always like, how did you do that? I'm like, oh man, years of practicing got me there. But cool. So now that we actually coded to what we're supposed to be coding to, we go ahead and we get this everything works. It skipped 4 tests. Yes, and this is again, this is an assumption I made about JavaScript. Didn't know. I was wondering why this here said X tests. It looks like to me that the X means just skip those tests, so we can do them one at a time. So that we could have done this, and we could have been running this test against our code the whole time. And so I removed the X for the second test, and let's run it again. And now it should run just 2 tests because we did pass the first one. And you can see here it ran our first 2 tests, but skipped the other 3. Let's go ahead and remove all of these X's. Save that. Cool. And just like that, we've completely passed all of our tests. We've solved the problem. And so now, I'll just see sure. Yeah. Like, so test-driven development is absolutely it's a relatively difficult concept to grasp. Well, to not to grasp, but more so to get like comfortable with and actually implement and do. Most people say they're doing it, aren't really doing it. But there's this day of coding retreat thing that happens every year, Global Day of Code Retreat. And so I did this last year, which is pretty cool. And we spent a whole day working on a problem. We had one problem set for the whole day. And what we did was we sat around with other people, and all we did was practice TDD. And it was like, hey, we got this problem. We practiced this thing called it was a Conway's Game of Life, which is a pretty common coding challenge. And basically, you sat around with people in languages you didn't know and wrote out tests all day. You write tests, blow them all after a few hours. You blow them all away. Start over. Think about how you're going to do this. Write the test, to solve the problems you need to solve. Blow it all away. Do it again, and then after the third time, you take someone else's test that they've written, and you go ahead and code Conway's Game of Life based off of the test that they wrote, which is very interesting because you've already thought about how to solve it. Like, you already know the things that you need to hit, and it was actually very easy and very quick to implement that code. So if you do have a chance to go to or to facilitate one of these Day of Code Retreat things, they are pretty cool, and I would highly recommend going to one. There's a bunch all over the world every year, so they need to update their site for this year, but it's pretty cool for that. But yeah, so we have this done. Udemy and Pluralsight. I use Udemy a lot, actually, because one, my job gives professional development, money for professional development, and Udemy, once you buy those courses, you have them for good. So I've got like dozens of courses on Udemy that I'm waiting to go through, and you have them forever. Pluralsight is also really good, but I believe that's the monthly subscription model, and I don't always have time to kind of go through that stuff, but those are both great sites. Linux Academy is another great one. If you're into cloud stuff, A Cloud Guru's a good one as well, if you're trying to pick up some of these topics and things like that. But we've got our tests, we've got our code written for this, and for Exorcism, you need to submit it now. So Exorcism is a command line tool. We have the command line tool installed. We could just do Exorcism, submit, and then we can tell it our file, so leap.js. So cool. So we've submitted this. It gives us a link to where it's been submitted to. We click this, and this is the code that we just wrote. Cool thing about Exorcism, again, is that mentors can kind of go in and check these out and read about them and make sure you wrote good code. They can provide feedback for you, to kind of help you out, to make you a little bit better. And it's all free. This is why I advise. This is why we're using this platform. I would advise not switching to the independent mode like we're on. Leave it on the mentored mode, because in independent mode, you have to request mentoring one solution at a time, which is a little annoying. But this gives us options to kind of jump around. I wanted to jump around with this, and some days, I wanted to go to some of the medium and hard stuff before we were really there. But yeah, so that like it gets pushed into Exorcism. Someone can come take a look at it. You can view community solutions, so you can kind of see other people's the way they wrote it. And so let's actually check that out. this person wrote, broke it down into a very simple thing. So basically they said if a year is, evenly divisible by 400, or a year is, oh wow, actually, I don't think this is a full solution. Return, this will, interesting. Or if the year is divisible by 400, or if the year is divisible by, is not divisible by 100, and the year is divisible by 4, return either true or false. So this statement will either return true or false. And what this is, and so I know I knew a faster way to write this, but not quite this short. So it's very interesting to take a look at. But it breaks down the logic here, and lets us know that, hey, the only logic we really need to know is if it's divisible by 400, and so if it's divisible by 400, then it's a leap year. So it's got to be divisible by 400 to be a leap year. So that's the one thing that we needed for sure. And then we needed to know if the year was divisible by 4, but not divisible by 100, because that would resolve all other test cases. That would give us true or false. So, everything we wrote here can be optimized down to a one-liner. Well, not one-liner, but basically a one-liner, which is very interesting. And if you go through, you'll see different ways that people did it, which is cool. So this person did it, much more similar way to how we did it. And we all achieved the same thing. So this is very much what you're going to see, in a coding position as you're, this is why people want you to do coding challenges for their jobs, not really to see if you can get the right answer. You can almost always brute force the right answer the way that we did it just now. But they kind of just want to see the way you solve problems, and this shows how to use how to use the tools available to you to do so. So this person did it in a different way. We could always take someone else's stuff. So it looks like you can also just export the function by putting export up here. Again, all different ways to do the same things. And that's why we practice these things. So just like this, I learned 4 or 5 different things just by looking at other people's solutions. You can only look at other people's solutions once you've submitted for that thing. You can submit solutions early, like if you're not done, or if you can't get it to work and you really want to take a look at some people's solutions, you can do that as well. But what I did want to do is create this repo so that everyone can kind of push to it. We can take this solution that we have here. If you have a better solution, or if you want to do it in a different language, you can add it to this. And so I can also show you how to, how we can track code and kind of work together on something. So I'm going to go back a directory, back one more directory. And I'm going to make this its own Git repo. To do that, you type in git init. This is git initiate. And what this does is this turns my current folder into a Git repository. And so this allows tracking of code. I'm going to do a git status here. So it lets me know that I have these folders here, and they're there, but they're untracked. And you have to explicitly tell Git to track files. So I'm going to do git add. I'm going to add a dot here. And so that's going to add everything that's in my current directory into, that's fine. All the errors that this is giving me now, that's why you don't do git add dot. Let's go with git add go. That was a bad move, and I really deserve that, actually. Let's actually do, have you ever used Git Kraken? I use it a little bit. So I'm a Linux person. I'm a Linux guy. So usually I would do this. I'm super comfortable with the command line. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing this in Windows now just because of some weird issues I was having. Windows also has more tools for streaming. And for playing games, I do play some video games, as you can see up here. I play a little bit of Overwatch, a little bit of Apex Legends, some other games too. I don't use Git Kraken. I do everything from the command line, but nothing wrong with Git Kraken. Git Kraken works pretty well. I think Git Kraken is one of the best GUIs for Git out there for sure. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove that .git folder. We're gonna start over. Huh. You know what? I don't know how to remove stuff in Windows. Windows delete command, delete directory command. Delete a file directory in Windows. Come on. Oh, delete del. So I'm going to delete this .git folder. When I did that git init, it created this .git folder. I'm going to delete it because I made a mistake here, and I'm going to do a git init again. Do another git status. I'm going to do a git add go. That's fine. And git add JavaScript. I could change this, but basically what's happening in here is that because I'm working in Windows, Windows and Linux and Mac. So Mac is Unix based, and so it's more Linux-like. They have different line endings for files, and what's happening here is I'm actually checking in all of the the node packages that we have as a part of this, and it's basically just running through saying, hey, we're replacing the line endings because you are using a Windows machine instead of a Linux machine that this was probably originally written on. And let me see, so that works. I can do a git status and I can push it, but it's gonna push all this stuff. I mean, that's fine, it's gonna push all this stuff. Let me actually try this from here. CD. So this is Linux inside of Windows, as a Linux subsystem for Windows. And let me see if I can do that from here. I'm gonna, let's see if I can remove that. Get in it. All right, initialize a empty Git repository. This won't change the Git status. Git add go, git add JavaScript, and you can see we don't get all those line endings. JavaScript's going to push up a lot of files. I really don't need to push up all those files, but I will anyway. This is going to take a while. Actually, you know what? Let's do that one more time. I'm just going to add specific files because I don't feel like uploading all that stuff. Git. Let's do another git init. Let's do git add go. And git add JavaScript. What's in there? Leap. And let's just add the leap.js. It's the only file we need. Just our solution file. Okay, we're doing the git status. And then we need to set this as our remote origin. So we added everything. So basically, Git workflows, to track files, you add them, you run that git add command and select the files that you want to add. So now all these files right here are being tracked by Git, by our local Git repository, and then we want to commit them, which kind of says, hey, take a snapshot of these files. This is the point in time in which we want to save them, and we want to say initial. You give it a message, so initial commit for our Crucible repo, and so you want this to be as descriptive as possible. Tell me what you did, tell me what things you changed. So you do that, you commit that. It creates basically a Delta file. It creates a change patch for the things that you have. Yes, the worst. That is absolutely the worst part about Windows Subsystem for Linux. You can disable that ding. There's like a bell every time you type in something wrong or autocomplete incorrectly. It's very annoying, but you can get it to shut off. I've done it before. This is a relatively new install of Windows for me, because I was using Linux for a while, and that's what I have now. But for mechanical keyboards, another good question. This was a Cooler Master Keys Pro S. It's a 10 keyless keyboard. that I use. I do like it a lot. I actually really love the 10 keyless for just space on my desk. I actually don't feel the need to have a numpad because I don't type in that many numbers, to be honest. I've got a few mechanical keyboards sitting around here. My wife has like an ASIA one. I'm probably going to be picking up a Corsair one pretty soon for gaming, one that's not so clicky. Yep. Yeah, I will disable this bell eventually. Once I get around to fixing all the little things on my computer. I actually need to set up Windows Substitute for Linux a little better, so I don't have to do this like weird Windows Linux thing that I'm doing now to do this, but no biggie. But so we've committed all of our changes. So commit says, create your change log. There's a point in time that we want to save the stuff for us to push it. So everything's saved on our local Git repository, and now we just need to give it a remote so that it knows where to push things to when we want to push it. No, that's not the right command there. Copy, paste. So basically this is telling our Git repository, hey, we want to add a remote option for where to push your local repository information to. This gives it a URL of what we just created. We know we just created this repository, and then we can actually push it up. So git push -u or origin master. And I didn't set up my Git here, and actually let me do that real quick. So git config -- global user.name is my name, and user.email, and you all feel free to email me, abrooks@mastermind.io. And now let's push. Do I have... That's interesting. It shouldn't be asking for... Oh, yes, it should. That's not it. Actually, I don't know what my username is. I need to check it out. Username, password. Cool. So now I pushed it up here. I'll set that up. I'm actually not used to that because I have everything set up with SSH keys. So I actually never have to put in my username and password. So that threw me off for a second. And cool. So now the code that we have is actually pushed up just like this. And so now you can see the stuff we did before. Everything, the Leap stuff that we have is here. And I'll paste you guys the repo for this. What just happened? Let me link to the repo. What you can do is you can fork it. Cool. You can fork this. I can't fork it apparently. Yeah. You can fork this repository, and you can add your own code to it and submit a pull request. We'll go over that in another video. I'll actually post things and like some tools and things to do this with, or some instructions on how to do this. But we'll do this at the beginning of the video showing how to do this, and maybe I'll create some other spaces for us to do the same thing as well. But it'll teach you how to, we'll go over the workflow for working on open source projects, which is forking and setting your upstream and doing a pull request to get your code push it to someone else's project. We'll talk about that. But Krypton for SSH management, I've actually never used Krypton. Let me see. Let me check that out. Actually, Krypton. Okay. So it's two-factor auth. Cool. Yeah. I like I said, I'm a Linux guy, so like I just set up some quick SSH keys, and I've got a bunch for all the different things that I use. And this is exactly what it says. Don't store your SSH private key in this in your ID RSA. That's exactly what I do. Because I'm old school. I'm I'm not all old school, but definitely in that fact, I'm old school for sure. So I'll definitely check out Krypton, because I do have to deal with a lot of SSH keys, which is really annoying. But tried and true works for me. But yeah, so now that repo is available to you, you can even try creating your own repo and pushing the code that you work on up so that you keep track of it. This will be used to keep track of the things that we do on stream, through this adventure of trying to get through everything inside of Exorcism. Eventually, once I work my life out a little bit better, I'm going to try to start doing, these are going to be 2 to 3 hour streams on Mondays for this, so that we can get through 2 or 3 of the options. But that's all I have for tonight. I actually got to go do some real work, for my job. So I'm gonna hop off and do that stuff. But we'll definitely reach out if you have any questions. Oh, last thing, I did a cloud. So I'm big into AWS, big into the cloud. I'm going to be doing a giveaway on Echo Dot that they gave me. Sorry, Amazon. I'm a Google Home type of guy. I got a bunch of Google Home Minis here. I got a Pixel. Me and my wife have Pixel phones. We're in the Google ecosystem. I'm going to be doing a giveaway on this Echo Dot. All you got to do is follow. If you'd like to subscribe, if you'd like to use your Amazon Prime subscription, if you'd like to subscribe, definitely subscribe. That will give you 5 votes. Actually, you get 5 entries into it. But everyone who is following will get an entry to this. And I will do a drawing next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, on next Wednesday's live stream. And I'll give it away. I'll be doing a lot of these. I actually get a lot of free items like this from whether it be conferences or other events and things that I do or I go to. And I've got too many things like this, so I'll be giving them away as I get them. So yeah, if you want to be interested in that, just follow. You will automatically be entered for it. And again, you'll get 5 total entries if you do subscribe, since I now do have a channel that's eligible for subscriptions. But that's all it is for tonight. I'll be back Wednesday. Wednesday, what I have planned is, I was supposed to do this last Wednesday, but I had some other things going on. I've carved out space to be able to do this. But if you're interested in hosting static, if you're interested in static site generators like Jekyll or Hugo, we'll learn about that. We'll learn how to incorporate them into a CI/CD pipeline with Travis CI. Maybe we'll use Circle CI, but we'll incorporate them into a build pipeline that automatically throws them into S3's static web hosting. So using AWS's S3 buckets as a static web hosting platform, we'll kind of go through that and do a full pipeline and make a quick little site with one of these static generators and get it hosted for change per month. I think a statically hosted site that doesn't get a ton of traffic will cost you like 20 cents per month or something like that. So that's what we'll be working on Wednesdays. And again, if you're new to the channel, Mondays will always be coding. Wednesdays will always be, system stuff or usually cloud stuff related to the cloud. And then I'm probably gonna start game streaming on Fridays just for fun, as a way to kind of wind down. But that's the plan. That's what I'll be doing. So definitely, stay tuned. Again, follow if you're not following, subscribe if you can. And I'll see everybody next stream. Cool. Have a good night.